In this video, I'm gonna take 4 newsletter subscribers who have taken this one measurement of their body. And with that, along with some lifestyle context and training context, I'm gonna evaluate their fitness. That tool is the DEXA scan. So stay tuned for some real live one-on-one coaching that I'm doing with these 4 participants right here on the call. This is the setup for this. This is the first time I've done this with in kind of like a live fashion, but 4 of you, 4 DEXA scans to review. I want to give each of you, somewhere around 12 to 15 minutes to talk through your results, talk through what you're doing, give you some feedback. And of course, I want this to be value add to you. So like, if I can point you in a good direction, give you some insights, something that you can take away from this, being like, cool, this is what I'm going to work on for the next 6 months that I want to change something about my results or move in a positive direction. That's my goal. For us, like we were, let's see. Yes, this is being recorded. It does appear, or yes. So we may use some of these clips for, education for members, for our newsletter. Maybe we'll turn some of these results into, a newsletter that goes out as a follow-up to last Friday. So long as you guys are okay with that, Satya may follow up with you and ask for like some more info that would just add depth to that conversation for other people to see. And I've looked over each of your scans. I looked over some of what you had kind of answered for the kind of general overview questions. But before we start, do you guys have any questions for me about the process or anything that's not clear about what we're doing? And I think maybe hopefully you can learn from each other too, because like what I say to Rich might impact you, Jessica, and vice versa. So we're all going to just go through this together. Satya, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you all for your participation.
Excellent. Real training means real sweating, and sweating makes me think of hydration. And there's no way to hydrate if you're not considering your electrolytes that you're taking in as well. That's why Element is my choice for hydration. It is a science-backed electrolyte formula with 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. It's delicious, it has no sugar, and it's easily dissolvable right into some water. I mix one of these up with about 30 ounces of water right before I train. I make sure I drink the whole thing before I get into my session. It's going to ensure that I'm hydrated and that all of my sets, all the way up until the very last one, is absolutely at my best performance possible. And of course, it doesn't hurt that this stuff tastes amazing. I find that the raspberry salt with a little bit of ice water is my favorite and my go-to pre-workout every single day. Okay, then I'm gonna do like the screen share thing, and I'm just gonna go by whichever scan I have kind of up first. Let's see. Rich, you are the first one up on my screen.
All right, let's do it.
Let's pull it up. All right, so first just kind of give, I know some background on you and I read some background, but just give me the 60-second elevator pitch on you and where you're at in your fitness right now.
So I've been doing CrossFit for 15 years. If you look at that little black spot on my hip in the scan, I have a hip replacement that I got about a year and a half ago. That has been great. My fitness journey is really just about maintaining muscle, and more importantly, gaining muscle. I'm 69 years old. I've got a decent amount of muscle, but while I was rehabbing my hip for a couple of years, because I refused to get that hip replacement, I rehabbed it and rehabbed it and rehabbed it. And I was lowering the intensity of my workout, but, and I was maintaining my weight. But when I got a scan back after I started working out more intensely, I saw that I lost 10 pounds of muscle in 2 years, which was a freak out.
Yeah. And so then talking about what changed from then until now.
So what changed from then until now is I just was starting to be able to do more heavy lifting, heavier back squats, heavier deadlifts, And I couldn't clean before. I couldn't do Olympic barbell work. And then I was able to start to do that and reincorporate that back in. So I was able to get the intensity back in. I was able to get the weight back in, but still it was really stubborn. I couldn't gain any muscle. I lowered my body fat percentage. I mean, I'm happy with where I am. I'm on like 9, 10%. I'm always going for 9. Um, and But I just couldn't gain any muscle. And then I remembered what one of my coaches told me, and I did 3 months of uh, deadlifts every single day. I did 30 deadlifts a day for 6 days a week, and I put on 5 pounds of muscle.
So that's what happened between July and October on this scan. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. And then, well, how did that feel on your body to do 6 days of deadlifting? I'm just curious.
Well, it's funny because after a while, I would negotiate with myself on how I was going to do it. If I was going to do it, I was consistent and I did it. It really took a toll. And I really started to, because I'd finish my workout and then I'd go, oh, darn, I've still got those deadlifts to do.
Sure.
So, but I did them, and I took a trip and then out to the East Coast, and then I just stopped and I never took it back up again.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, appreciate it. I might ask a few more questions, but the other context I have here was that you mentioned, like, how do I think about progressive overload going forward in the context of just really always doing these Metcons and adding in conditioning? So you're very much still committed to a CrossFit model of like fitness and training. Like, you still want to compete in the sport? Are you doing that?
I am not competitive anymore, but I still do stuff.
Okay. Gotcha. And what about that methodology? It's not the methodology, but what about like this idea that like I do strength and conditioning in the same session? Is that something that you're married to? Is it because you do classes and that's what they offer? Do you do your own workout programming?
I have a really good coach, level 4 CrossFit coach who does my programming. I see him 2 days a week in my home gym here. And I'm just really committed because I need to get stronger. That much I know, and I need to get better at conditioning. So those two things work well.
But yes, but I guess I just want to go into that deeper. Like, you need to get stronger. You need to get better conditioning. Why do you need to do those things?
It's a psychological thing. It's vitality. As been doing this for a while, I need to maintain my muscle mass, and honestly, I need to increase my muscle mass. I'm not happy with just maintaining it. And I just want to be able to, be active with hiking here in Marin, and skiing, and kayaking and all that sort of stuff. So that I feel like that combination of conditioning and strength works well for me.
Okay. I guess, yeah. So
Marcus, the one thing I will say is, as a older person, I keep on coming back to that, but I need to do an awful lot of mobility. I need to do I've got to do at least 45 minutes to an hour of mobility before I work out, and I do 15 minutes after. And so my sessions in the gym take a long time.
Yeah. So Rich, I hear this, and I want to say a couple things about your DEXA scan. It's important not to mistake this lean tissue number here for muscle mass. Okay. Muscle mass is likely part of that, but it is very possible to add lean tissue to your body, which is fluid. It can be inflammatory tissues. It can be a lot of different types of tissue that get calculated here. A 4.5 or 4.6 pound increase in muscle tissue in 4 months at 69 years old at this body composition. that would, unless you went on some performance enhancing drugs, then that's likely that's not real. And I don't say that to like discourage you, like, hey, I did all these deadlifts. I did this cool deadlift protocol. I just like people to not get caught up in noise and really focus on what's happening. Because you doing a deadlift protocol that is that extreme or that intense, like, it maybe adds some strength, but to put on 5 pounds of muscle after you being as trained as you are is virtually impossible, unless, of course, you are taking a big amount of peptides or steroids. There's no chance that even at a intermediate, training age at 69, that's really possible. So there is not going to be a massive unlock in your muscle mass at this age. Like, you've built the muscle that you're going to have. You're in a maintenance level of, like, you maintaining the muscle you have for the rest of your life is going to keep you in the top percentile of all 69, 70, 80-year-olds that are out there. Like, if you look at this body fat percentile, over 60, if you're under 21 body fat, 21 body fat percentage, like, you're in the top percentile of everybody, and you're at 10. Like, Rich, you are a freaking stud. It is by far not the thing you need to be thinking about, in my opinion, because it's just time and energy pointed at the wrong thing. Like, if you have to warm up for an hour to prep for a training session because you have to go and get stronger and get more conditioning, it just makes me start to think, like, well, why are we spending that much time? Like, for you to like, this is I've talked about it before, but the dose that you need to get better is way up here. The dose that you need to maintain is way down here. There's a big bit of gray area. All right. And for you at this age of your life, at this stage of your training, to be pushing for this without a competitive goal, that's why I asked that. Like, if you're not trying to win the CrossFit Games, then like, why? Like, then you have to do all of this up here to try and put on an incremental amount of muscle. Right. And then it's like, but when you do that much, you feel beat up. You need to do a ton of mobility. You need to do. And so most people end up living in this gray area of progress, where it's like they're not doing enough to get better and they're doing more than they need to maintain. And what would you do with that extra time? Well, maybe you would get more flexible. Maybe you would learn a new, set of like physical skills that actually allow you to apply strength in a better way. And these numbers, these body composition numbers are phenomenal. It's like, well, where could you be channeling some more, time and energy? Because you're not at this stage at risk of losing like muscle tissue and being decrepit and not being able to hike. Like, the only thing that's going to keep you from doing that is you push too damn hard and you hurt yourself and you need to get a different hip replaced. And then you have to take more and more months. Like, the most muscle mass that you could lose is by having to take 6 months off because your hip is jacked up.
Fair.
And I hope I wasn't like, I'm trying to be efficient with these, but that is like, I would love to have another 30 to 60 minutes to kind of ask more deep questions about what is the purpose and the drive behind your training? Because Rich, I've seen you compete. I've seen you in person. We've crossed paths over the years through this CrossFit thing. You being at 10%, 10.5 on DEXA scan, and maybe if you're even lower than that now, like, I got a DEXA scan, and what I was looking for as I was scrolling down is usually they have like where you fall in the bell curve for your age group. You are like at the end. You're like you're the way outlier in both muscle, like lean tissue, body fat percentage. I'm sure visceral fat. I didn't even see the visceral fat number on here, but I imagine it is exceptionally low. Yeah. I mean, these numbers are really solid. Okay. So, how much, I think the question you want to walk away is, how much muscle can I realistically gain at this stage of life with as many years of training as that I've done? And it's not a lot. And so to think, what's the thing that's going to push me to that new height? I wouldn't be chasing more muscle. I would be chasing a strength program that is efficient, makes you feel great, allows you to challenge yourself at least 3 times a week to be strong. And I would consider doing strength and conditioning on separate days in your training and going to a true like hybrid type of training model where you're not necessarily having to fit it all in, because that initial question of is progressive overload, like how do I progress and push myself so hard on strength when I also got to do this butt kicking Metcon? That's
Right.
why I don't do that anymore personally. I'm like, I
Right.
just lift, and today I'm lifting, I'm going to get strong, and then tomorrow I'm going to do some intervals, and the next day I'm going to lift, and then I do my 4 days of stuff a week, and that's it, because I'm not going to try and hit that maximum of what I'm capable of to move the needle on my muscle mass and my strength, uh, because to push that amount of training volume intensity, I'm going to not show up as the dad and the business owner that I also want to be, because it's just not the season of life for me to try and win championships anymore.
Got it. I hear you loud and clear. I guess
Cool.
that the only thing I'll say is because I had the muscle and I lost it, that's why I'm, chasing it. And
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. It's kind of like, okay, that was then, this is now.
Well, can I ask you, how far off are you from where you were before the hip?
Well, I mean, the lean tissue, oh, like an old one was 150, 151.
151. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and there's muscle memory is real. So if in fact you've gotten past like the days of like you're not limited by your hip anymore, you continue to build, strength. Your body may help you. Just it might know to go back to like somewhere in that relative set point. Um, and I also think that like there's it's an acceptable amount of muscle loss. If that was 5 years ago, you had a 150 lean tissue, and it's 5 years later and you went through this, yeah, it may come back up to 146, 147, maybe 148. But the thought to try and accelerate to get there and try and do more at the expense of your mobility and your recovery, I don't know if it's, the best idea. But I will say, if you start to separate out your resistance training, and let's say like muscle mass is all I'm hearing you say is the most important, like your cardio, like I would downplay cardio for 6 months and do more structured resistance training just to build back whatever muscle you can. And then that would be my focus. And then you can always get your aerobic system back. That's for sure. Muscle mass is the thing that is going to be hardest to maintain going forward.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. All right, let's go to this one, and I'll pull these back over. This is Katie. Awesome. You want to jump in and give us your 60-second elevator pitch?
Yeah, I just had somebody interrupt me, so
That's okay.
yeah, so I just had my third baby 2 years ago, and I feel like I was in pretty good shape when I was single, but I was very like cardio focused. I was doing a ton of road biking and running and stuff, and didn't really know the benefits of strength training. And so I've been trying to pick that up. It's been pretty difficult with like going through the crucible of fire of having 3 young kids, 2, 4, and 6 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I feel like I'm finally like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of like the difficulty of having them all being little now that he's 2, like finally being able to like sleep through the night. And, so this is my first time ever getting a DEXA scan. So it's kind of like my starting point of like, okay, I'm through like the most difficult part of having babies, and it kind of wrecked my body. And now I want to get back into a healthy range of where I should be.
Is there pre-babies? What was life like back then for you from a fitness and health standpoint?
Like I said, I was like biking to work, commuting every day, running, doing like training for like 5Ks and half marathons. And I did like some century bike rides and stuff like that.
Okay. And then can I actually, maybe an interesting question. How did you even come across our newsletter, and like, how are you involved in, like, how did you even see this?
Yeah. So my husband and I started dabbling in like some CrossFit just home workouts because we started building up like a garage gym. So we started just kind of doing a little bit of that. And then we quit the gym and then we're committed to our garage gym. And then I tried a few different programs, and I can't remember how I came across your program, but then I started your program a few months ago. It just kind of appealed to me because I like the idea of doing mobility and, a little bit of cardio and the strength training and like combining all of those. I've been doing it for a few months now and been getting the newsletter.
Okay, right on. And you're doing, of the training tracks that we have in Persist, which one are you following?
I think it's the condition one.
Okay. Pump condition, like the 3-day. Are you, how frequently are you getting that in?
I was shooting for 5 days, but consistently been 4 days a week right now.
That's great. Are you getting in full 60-minute sessions, or are you getting interrupted? You are? Yeah,
because I do it at 10:30 at night.
10:30 at night. Okay.
That's the only time. I've tried to do it when the kids are awake, and it just is impossible. So
Sure. And when's the earliest that one of them gets up in the morning?
He wakes me up at like 5.
Okay. Gotcha. And all right. And then when you took your body scan, I know I read what you thought was like what stood out to you, but could you just summarize like what else, or what are the big things that you see? This is like you comparing to some of the scales that you're on using at home. Was that?
Yeah. So I'd had a Fitbit scale I'd been using. And then I right before this DEXA scan, I got one of the ones where you hold the handles that tells you your body fat. That's supposed to be a little more accurate. Yeah. But I noticed after getting the DEXA that it was still like 5 percentage points off or something. And it was kind of giving me some weird numbers at first. And so I was like, I'm just I had kind of been thinking about it anyway. Like, I just want to get a DEXA scan like once a year from now on, or like once every 6 months, so that I can have something that's more accurate. Yes. And I guess my question would be like, what's even an accurate time frame to get into like the healthy range for my age group? Yeah. That kind of thing.
Great. Well, and then if you were if we could answer that question for you today, what other things would you love to walk away from today with?
I mean, I guess I know that one of my weaknesses is like tracking things. So I guess just kind of a little help with that, because I've just never been good at like tracking food or weight or anything like that. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for all that share. And this is like, commend you on getting in so many consistent workouts a week at 10 o'clock at night, which is unfathomable to me, because I'm asleep already at 8:30 when my last one goes down to bed. I'm just like straight to bed. But I also wake up and do all my stuff early. So we're kind of on different sides of it. But that's great that 4 days of training is amazing. And honestly, like, I don't really believe that people need to train more than 4 days a week. 3 days a week is kind of, I mean, you've seen me talking about it. Satya coined the 360-10, which is like 3 days of resistance training, 60 minutes of total cardio a week, 10,000 steps a day. Like, I believe that. I'm preaching it because it's what I'm doing. I do 3 days of resistance training, and I do 60 minutes of cardio, and I walk every day, and I eat good food. And that, I believe, is like the foundation for busy parents and busy people in life. And if you have more free time and you want to dedicate it to fitness, by all means, but you can accomplish so much with that. Now, looking at this, like, what are the levers that you can think about pulling to try and, change your body composition? I think we can talk percentages, but I think what's more valuable is thinking, when we coach people through fat loss, plans, what's a like a realistic amount of body fat that somebody can lose that doesn't require like such restrictive, unsustainable practices that they're going to fail after 4 weeks. Like, what do we aim for? So I'm pulling up my calculator, but at this body mass that you're at right now, if you calculate out how much fat mass you have on your body, you've got about 70 pounds of fat mass. All right. Now, that's at 36%. A female body at 20% body fat is like very lean. That is like to go sub 20% into the teens as a woman is like almost, it's bordering on like competitive, like bodybuilder, not bodybuilder, but like aesthetic bodybuilding figure competitor stuff. So where would you arrive in that range where you're at like a comfortable or a confident, comfortable body fat percentage? It's like somewhere in the low 20s, mid to low 20s would be like, put you in that really high percentile for your age group in terms of body mass and body composition. So I'm saying a lot of words and numbers, but I just want to put this into perspective. Like, what is losing 10 to 13% of your body fat at this point mean? It means 192 times 0.13. It's losing like 25 to 30 pounds of body fat. And when you want to lose that much weight, like without losing any muscle, what's the recipe, the formula, and how long does something like that take? I look at it as like, that's a year-long process. That's 1 year of dedicated work where you're essentially losing a half a pound of body fat per week. And to get you to lose a half a pound of body fat per week, these are the levers that we would really want to pull with you. I would want you to transition all of your training time to strength training only. I wouldn't have you doing pump condition. I'd have you doing pump lift. The reason is the most important tissue that you have to train is your lean tissue, your muscle tissue. I want you to get the biggest benefit out of every time you're in the gym from learning how to train with weights and push yourself to high intensity levels so that you get strong and you even build some muscle in this process. I already talked about it with Rich, but it's the most important tissue currency that we have. We need to build as much of it as we can. The second lever, once you're doing your 3 or 4 days of really good resistance training, the second lever is we need to evaluate and you need to start tracking data in some way. Like data is it's not just like for the geeks and the nerds that want to optimize. It is like, if you don't know your numbers, then it's like not knowing, your financial budget. It's like, I don't know how much I'm making. I don't know how much I'm spending, and hoping that there's a positive balance in your bank account when it comes time for needing something. And so Satya also like coined the WEST acronym, but it's like, what are the things that you need to measure? You need to measure your weight. Okay, so your body weight. I prefer daily body weight, but you need at least 2 body weight checkpoints a week. So you have the scales, weigh every day. I don't care if the scale at home is a little less sensitive than the one at the DEXA scan. I'm not concerned about it. I just want something consistent, right? You're gonna measure your what you're eating. All right, so you have to start thinking about tracking food. You have to know what's going in your body, and that's a big like. How do I do that? I've never done that before. It's just like any skill, and we teach this to people all the time in our like one-to-one coaching program. It's not intuitive for anybody. You have to just practice it. You have to suck at it for a couple weeks or for a month. You get some coaching on it. We fast track teaching you how to do it. You got to learn how to just practice the skill. And then honestly, once you can start seeing very clearly with good accuracy what's going into your body, you start to become more intuitive about making better choices and helping you get into a calorie deficit, which is going to help the fat loss. The third thing is the S, it's steps. So we got to track our weight. We got to track what we eat. We got to track our steps. And this was the lever next to training with weights that is the biggest thing that in the course of the next year, if you can learn how to take your step counts from wherever they are today, which I imagine they're not as high as you'd like them to be, or kind of at the whim of, the kids and what life is throwing at you. That's the third lever to pull. And we have kind of general ideas and targets, but tracking your steps with a wearable like a watch or a belt, there you go. You got your step tracker like every day. What's your average last week? Let's take it up by 2,000. Let's take it up by another 2,000. We have clients that the steps are the lever that they pull. And if they can get that up to 12, 15,000 a day consistently for 3 months, they lose a dramatic amount of fat, and they keep it off, because even if they back their steps off to 10 or 12,000 a day, which becomes their normal and their baseline, they can keep very good energy balance long term. And then the last thing is training. Track your training. What does tracking your training mean? For you, it's as simple as this: 6-week training cycles. Every time you start, the weight that you lift on week 1 and the weight that you lift on week 6 on the last week, there has to be a measurable increase. That's all. What did I do on the bench press on week 1? What did I do on week 6? Did it get better? Did I improve it? And then from week to week to month, am I just getting a little bit stronger? That's how you know that you're building muscle tissue or preserving muscle tissue. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
With that, in the span of a year, I am 100% confident that you could very capably, without going absolutely mental, even with the crazy life that you've got, and I don't, pretend to want to go back to having 2 under that age, let alone 3, you can lose that amount of body fat. Half a pound a week is very approachable now that you're starting to get more time back. Your sleep is starting to get a little bit better, and the starting place that you're at, you definitely have room to improve. How was that to take in? And do you have any follow-up questions for me?
No, that's good. Do you recommend something for food tracking? Like, is it mainly just the macros and the calories? Is there any tool that you recommend that you feel like works well? Or I feel like I make a lot of like homemade stuff from scratch, so that's what makes it a little hard to measure things too. So
It does. And it sounds like you put a lot of care and thought into what you're feeding your family and feeding yourself, which is awesome. What makes tracking easier, harder? It's definitely not the tool, like the app that you choose. There's plenty of good apps. Like even the FBB app has a food tracking section. You can log your food in there. The challenge is first just doing it. Track everything that goes into your body. Log every single thing that you eat. And then that just takes discipline at first. And then the second like challenge is, can I log everything accurately? Okay. And that's where you're talking about like, oh, I make a lot of things from scratch. Like, I don't know how to measure that. So then you have to I have made complex recipes, 20 ingredient recipes that I've batch cooked for 15 meals, and I've logged it all precisely and, portioned it out and then logged it. Like it's possible. That's not like basic arithmetic. That's more like advanced algebra, but it's possible. The question is like, how do we get you to do that better? There are tools on food tracking apps where it's like you make a plate, and you like take a picture of it. This is pasta, or this is like whatever you made, and give me the best guess at what the calories are. And it'll give you a guess, and maybe they're getting more and more accurate, but you can start by just logging it and getting, and then if I'm going to give you one piece of advice, it's just learn how to track your protein first and log that every day, and make sure that at 100, at your current body weight, make sure you're getting a minimum of 140 grams of protein every day, and 50 of those before 10 a.m.
okay.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Katie.
It's very
I hope
helpful.
okay, good. I hope that wasn't
Yeah, that
too
was good.
overwhelming, but yeah. All right, let's move it on. Let's move it on to Spencer. Here we go.
Howdy.
Spencer, you got a little bit of an Aaron Rodgers look to you. Have you ever heard that?
I have heard that. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I'll take it. Yeah.
I think if it's looks, that's a good thing. I think if it's his whole vibe and personality, that's people have different opinions,
To be determined.
To be
Yeah,
determined, right.
he's taken his own path in life.
Sure has.
Well, I so much appreciate you extending your time and your willingness and your ingenuity to be able to help us kind of navigate these things.
Sure.
And I'd love to hear Rich's story. Rich, I feel like I'm actually a little bit headed down your path. So I'm 41. I have had some hip impingement for the past 6 months or so, based off of an acute overstretch in a hotel gym where the mat slipped out from under my leg and it kind of put me into full splits mode and tore my labrum. But not so much. That's not so much what I'm feeling the pain in. Once they got under MRI, they're like, "Oh, you actually have osteoarthritis in your joint, and on the top of your femur, you got a bunch of cartilage that's grinding away. So this will probably lead to hip replacement at some point." And like, this is extremely jarring news for me, being a very active individual for the past, well, as long as I can remember in life.
Yeah.
So
My only advice, Spencer, is sooner rather than later.
I keep hearing that.
I went to 5 orthopedic surgeons and they all said, "You'll tell us when you need to get a hip replacement." And I'm like, "Yeah, but tell me when I should get my hip replaced." And they're like, "No, you'll tell us." Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if it starts to become a problem just walking the dog or walking around, then it's time to get a hip replacement.
Gotcha.
Heard. Yeah. Thanks for that, Rich. I just don't want to have two in my life, which I'm a little younger than you. So you're a bit of an inspiration to know that you're still kicking ass at, in your 60s with a Wolverine hip. So I appreciate you. All that to say, Marcus, I've been adjusting my plans a little bit with how often I train, how much the depth at levels that I can go still. And, as you're kind of seeing here, trying to keep muscle mass on still, even though I'm working around and with an injury.
Yeah.
So before I was 5 days a week condition. Now I've tailored back significantly into 3 days a week condition.
Yep.
Clearly not running anymore. And, no longer is like triathlon, a bit of what I was doing on the side. No longer is that really a big thing for me, at least at this point in time.
Okay.
As such, I haven't seen much numbers change on the body fat percentage. Granted, that's not really a big care of mine. I'm fine fluctuating. The ones that don't show up here, I kind of go down between 11 and 15. A lot of the times, closer to the holidays ends up at 15, closer to the summertime ends up at 11. And I'm fine with that. Like, I'm not really trying to compete. And, sometimes it's nice to see further definition and whatever else. But now my question is, or just like my consults around where I'd love to come to you with, is navigating through injury.
Yeah.
And also maintaining strength through injury, because, not being able to back squat ass to grass anymore, but coming down to 90 degrees and unfortunately having to take weight off the bar because it's painful in certain movements.
Yeah.
Is just like a little bit of an extra thought process, but also very humbling to a human that, for all intents and purposes, has moved pretty well in most planes of motion most of their life.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Outside of that, avid yoga practitioner. So soft tissue and stretching is very much a part of my weekly routine. I'd say 4 to 5 days a week. And that balances quite nicely with the strength training program. Yeah. I'm really missing the cardio aspects, because not being able to run and put impact on the joint or jump is a hard truth. And then not being able to kind of to Rich's point, keep as much weight on the bar as I once did is a little humbling as well.
Yeah. Well, let me ask a couple more questions. Thanks, Spencer, for that background.
Yeah.
I would say first question is, prior to you having the accident in the hotel gym, that like the labrum tear, stretch, whatever, did you have hip pain before that?
No.
Okay.
Never in my life until 40.
So yeah. And then you had the tear, the injury, and then you from there went and got an MRI.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, fuck, man. I'm not a doctor here. I'm not going to tell you anything, but I promise you, Rich's story was not like that. You went from having no pain ever to having a freak accident, which then, I got pain. I better go get an image. and you go to the image and they're like, you did this, but you also have this other thing, that never ever prior to today, this crazy injury bothered you, is now the thing that's going to require you to get a hip replacement. You'll come and tell us when you need a hip replacement, get a hip replacement. I'm like, what the hell? Like, dude didn't need a hip replacement yesterday. He's not going to need it tomorrow. He strained his labrum. Like, how long ago was that?
That was back in May of last year.
So you've just been like struggling to properly rehabilitate this thing.
Yeah, it's been chronically inflamed since then and progressively getting worse. But the imaging and the mental aspect probably doesn't help around it either.
Yeah. So that was like 7 months ago or 8 months ago at this point.
Yeah, 8 months.
And then when did you decide to like, so you didn't like stop running right away, but you've like peeled it back?
Exactly. Yeah. I kind of peeled it back around 3 months. I was like, oh, this isn't getting better. Let me rest it a little bit more.
Yeah. And then you've got this like, and then you have I don't know.
I hear you. I also have a PT working in my corner that's saying the same thing as you. He's like, This is probably a lot of inflamed soft tissue work around it that is trying to overcompensate for this chronically inflamed joint. I'm like, yeah, that's probably true. So let's get in there, dry needle it. Let's do PRP. Like, I'm doing all the things on top of it.
And now you're going to start the peptide stack maybe next month, you said?
This week, upcoming week.
Okay. Yeah. And then does it bother you doing any of your yoga?
Yeah. Any deep flexion. So think Cossack squat on the side of the injured hip, Malasana, or basically like frog squat in a deep squat, and then hinge sometimes grind it like on a one-legged deadlift style situation or warrior 3 in yoga.
All right. Well,
there's a lot there. I get it.
I know there's a ton there, but if I'm just going to like give you kind of the big things to think about, number one, you do need to stop doing stuff that causes pain. I don't care if it gives you like an emotional, like, and a spiritual, like, sense of like, wholeness to go and do it. Like, just stop doing stuff that's keeping the inflammation chronic at this point. And like, it's re-aggravating it repeatedly. And you're like, well, what do I do instead? It's like, we got to get creative. And from a resistance training standpoint, like I tell people, I'm like, if you stay in chronic pain for the next 3 years, you will lose a lot more strength and muscle than if you just really rehab this thing correctly by just laying off of it and stop doing stuff for 3 months and then get to 100%, get past this chronic inflammation where the osteoarthritis in your hip, it's not even an issue. It's like, now you can start training and then you build back. And after a 4 or 5 month rebuild, you're back where you were before and you're progressing, rather than being in a chronic state of just like trying to just pull back the thing a little bit and like, can I get away with doing this? Can I get away with doing this? Mm-hmm. Personally, that's how I've always approached injury, and what I say with my clients. I'm like, let's stop messing around and finding ourselves a year from now saying the same thing because we just didn't want to fully back off. The other thought is resistance training. Like, I mean, I hear you in that you have to reduce a lot of like loading in some of these traditional compound lifts that you do. But I personally have let go of like I've gone through a lot of injury rehabilitation, and, exercise selection is really important. Like I almost envision you like getting into a Globo gym and just doing like machine isolation work for a period of time. That is honestly, those are some of the best tools for rehab, because you can be very selective on what muscle groups you're actually targeting and what joints you're stabilizing. And so there's plenty of good ways to train your quads, train your glutes, train your, hips that don't require you to go into deep hip flexion under axial load. So like back squats, and deep Cossack squats, it's like, I would opt for, hip thrusts on a machine, not with a barbell, because there's more stability in the machine. I would opt for adduction, abduction exercises on a machine. I would opt for, maybe a belt squat where you can load in a way where you can adjust your position, maybe even doing like unilateral leg press at light weight where you can really stabilize and only go to like ranges of motion that work for you. And I think with free barbell squatting, or even doing any of these kind of functional compound lifts, it's just demanding more stability out of your hip than it's ready to give so that you can't express full force. You might find that if you go onto a machine and the machine is stabilizing for you, you can express a lot more force, get an intensity level in that muscle tissue that elicits some growth response, or at least some, anabolic response, so that you don't lose muscle tissue through a period of time where you're really taking a step back on your conditioning or your running and some of the things that, and maybe even some of your yoga, some of the things that you have loved to do, with the goal of, hey, in the next 3 to 6 months, I'm pouring every bit of energy into everything. Has to make sense to get better. No regressions, no trying to tolerate pain in anything that I'm doing, so that I can turn this thing around, and then, I can get back to what I've always wanted to be doing and what I've always done. Does
Amen.
that resonate at all? Or is there anything that you heard that was different than what you've heard from your people already?
No, it's very similar advice, and I appreciate the candor around it. I guess like it's just pushing against the old version of you that wants to do the things, and there's like a little story that says, well, if you don't go down into those range of motion, you're going to lose strength and eventually become like an old crotchety man that can't squat down fully or get off the ground. There's this story that's in my head.
Yes. Well, you're 41, you said?
41.
You got time. You're not, and look, you appreciate it, it. It's like taking a departure from it for a little bit doesn't mean you're going to lose it. I promise. Like, because when your hip is feeling better, you'll gravitate back to doing that again. Chalk this up to like an acute injury that has turned chronic from not giving it the space that it needs to really properly heal, which is no fault of yours, because I'm going to try and push the limits of any injury and keep moving as much as I can, because I want to maintain the normalcy of my life until it tells me officially, like, hey, stop doing the thing. And then I would also just continue looking for any avenues nutritionally that you can take to really limit inflammation. And if you're fluxing between, like you said, like 11 and 15% body fat, summertime like 11%, and then the winter I was 15%. Well, that means from whenever you injured your hip in May through the summer and then into the winter, you put on, a reasonable amount of mass, which meant you were in a caloric surplus, which meant there was some inflammatory, there's probably some like it wasn't a purposeful bulk. It was like you just put on weight, which means you were in calorie excess, which is inflammatory. So you weren't doing the hip healing any favors by being in a 500 calorie surplus per day that led to 10 pounds of fat mass over the course of, or 8 pounds of fat mass over the course of 6 months or 5 months. So I would be mindful of like, hey, if I really want to take 2026 to be the time that I just put this hip thing to bed and I get myself back to, I would tighten up the diet a lot. I think there's more there than most people want to acknowledge.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the harder thing too.
Yes,
I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for the advice.
Thanks, Spencer.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Jessica, let's wrap it up with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for doing this. This is really cool. So yeah, I guess kind of my story, I've been lifting for a long time, super just active person overall, taught yoga for 10 years as well. So lifting for a long time, I didn't really get into an actual good, like progressive overload style of training until I joined my current gym. I've been there for about 2 years. They are a CrossFit gym, but they have a strength program, which is mainly what I do. It's 4 days a week, 2 upper, 2 lower. Super intentional. I've tried pretty much every gym in Denver. And it's, as you know, it's very hard to find a class-based gym that has legitimate strength programming. And it's glorified cardio. So, so I've kind of been doing their strength programming now for, consistently for about 2 years. My first year there had insane results. Like my body comp completely changed. I didn't lose a ton of weight. I just like body comp totally changed. So I'm 41 and I'm probably the leanest and strongest I've been in my entire life, to be honest. I've kind of like carried all my lifts. So that's felt really, really good. In that I've definitely tracked my food a decent amount off and on. I've been in like the holistic nutrition space for a long time, kind of had my own business doing that for a while. So I eat like very clean, like, refined sugar free, tons of protein, like make most of my own food and all that. The year that I had the biggest change, actually, though, I took a break from tracking. I was like, I'm just going to kind of listen to my body and follow this programming and, see what happens, and had really good results. So where I'm at right now, I'm happy with where I'm at, like, especially at 41. I'm not like unhappy, but I will say that I think there's just still, what I'm struggling with is there's so much information about training, especially for women, especially as I enter into perimenopause and hormones and cortisol and all of that. I definitely am one that leans towards overtraining. Activity is how I get my energy out. The gym is also like a big social community piece for me. So like that's very important. And I think I'm at a place where I just have like very specific goals. I'm someone that also just likes to push myself like physically and in that area of my life. So my biggest thing is I think for the amount that I work out and like how clean I eat, I definitely look and feel good, but I still feel like it's hard for me to like find a bathing suit that I feel really, really good in. Like, I just would like to maybe recomp a little bit more and get to a place where I'm not overthinking everything. I started tracking my food again because I was working with a coach at my gym, really just to make sure like, hey, I'm training a lot. I want to make sure I'm eating enough and my macros are matching my training. So kind of worked with her and was tracking really diligently. She increased my carbs pretty significantly, which honestly, nothing really changed, like didn't go up in weight or anything. I think my body responded overall pretty well. I'm finding I'm in a place now where I feel a little too attached to tracking, where when I don't track, I start to get anxiety over, did I have enough carbs? Did I have too many? Did I have enough? Am I overeating? Am I undereating? So, and then on the training side of things, I lift 4 days a week. I do love a good conditioning workout. Like, I love a good, just like ass kicking Metcon. It makes me feel good. It expends a certain energy that I don't get in just lifting. So once or twice a week, I will stay after my lifting session and do a little Metcon. Or if I like the CrossFit programming, I will pop into a CrossFit class here and there and, do it with them, and then potentially stay and just do some of the strength accessory after. And then I will say on Saturdays, I usually do like a longer conditioning workout. My gym does like a partner, conditioning workout on Saturdays. Prior to that, I was doing kind of probably like a sort of high rocks-ish style workout out in Littleton with an old trainer. And that's just something I really enjoy. It's fun. I like pushing myself in that way. So I guess I'm just trying to find a balance of like programming that fits my goals, caloric intake and macros where I'm not overthinking everything. I know sometimes the class-based setting isn't always the most conducive when you have really specific goals. So I am potentially open to, following my own programming for a while as well and seeing how that goes. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Thank you, Jessica. A couple of things I want to ask. You had mentioned that through the period, like you said, like during a period of not tracking and just following the programming, you had seen some of your biggest results or your best results. That's how you phrase that, correct?
Yeah.
When was that? How long? And what were the results? You lost body fat or you gained muscle? What happened that time?
Yeah. So that would be, let me get the year right. I've been at the gym for 2 years. So it was my first year. So I guess I started around October 2023. And then by like that summer, it wasn't even intentional. I kind of just like, I had a before picture that I'd taken when I was working with a nutrition coach, and then kind of stopped working with her. And then I was like, I think like my pants aren't really fitting. Like my body comp's definitely changed. And I did a side by side and it was like I said, pretty drastic. Yeah. I don't know like exactly how much body fat I lost because I hadn't done like one of these prior. But I definitely gained muscle and lost body fat. I just don't know exactly.
Okay. No, that's great. Well, so you work with a nutrition coach, you had built some systems, you had built some awareness, knowledge, you had done some tracking, you knew like fundamentals. Then you joined a strength, like you went from, at that point, it was like, join the strength gym, get into some classes, found a good rhythm, really consistent for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months maybe. And then, whoa, I can visually see from picture to picture. Yeah, I mean, that makes a ton of sense to me. It's like, you had the nutritional awareness to keep eating in some level of caloric maintenance or even slight calorie deficit, which allowed you to continue to lose some body fat. You added in resistance training in a big way, in an intentional way, in a progressive overload way, which allowed you to, for the first time maybe in your life, as like a relative beginner or new trainee, build muscle tissue, like those are the newbie gains. That was awesome. Like you rocked that and you didn't need to do the tracking.
Yeah.
And so here you are 2 years later, you're not a newbie anymore. You're an intermediate phase lifter. The progressions are not going to be like the progress in your lifts are not going to be coming as fast as they did prior. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that you are now going to have to be a lot more precise about how you lift, how you approach your intensity of lifting, and probably your diet if you want to make more changes on top of what I'm already seeing here. Because, at 20% body fat as a female, and always keep in mind, like, what is 20% relative to like a male? Like 20% is like a 12% body fat male in terms of like visual leanness. Because women generally carry about 8% body fat just in their, intramuscularly, visceral, around organs, not visceral fat, but like other organ fat, their pelvis, and in their breast tissue. Like there's just, so you are on the lean side of things already. And when it comes to like, I heard your like kind of aesthetic goal. It's like, I want to feel more confident in a bathing suit. I want to look, you know, that can be hard to start to measure. I know that's a very like subjective thing. Like I just look good in this. I feel good in this. Where that will come in terms of like what your body weight and your body fat percentage is, I don't know, but I do know that going south of 20% body fat, getting to like the 18 or 17 range, which, I like to put this in numbers. If you were to just lose fat from here on out and you lost 5 pounds of fat, 5.6 pounds of fat, that would take you down to 16% body fat. You'd be 120 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. 16% body fat is starting to get very low for a female. And it just makes it very hard to sustain. Right. Because that's when you start to see suppression of hormones. You start to see, things that just are not going to make you feel your best. Yeah. And I guess all that's to say, like, you have a great amount of lean mass on your body. You probably, by most people's objective, like their opinions, their subjective is like, dude, she looks amazing. Like she's, what would she, how could she possibly want more? But I get that that's not your lived experience.
Yeah. And I get it's like little tweaks. And for me, it's mostly, and this is probably most women, right? Like lower belly area, just wanting to be a little bit more, I hate the word toned. I just don't know, what else to use. So again, I think it's more like redistributing, but like, I like having glutes. I like having, some meat on my butt. Like, I don't want to be like rail thin or lean. So that's why I know it's probably very much these like super, super fine tuning specific, things.
Yeah. But one more thing I wanted to come back to is like the reworking with your nutritionist now and re-looking at your macronutrient distribution. So as you lean out and as you're making training a higher priority in terms of resistance training and not just like your previous movement practices, but like you want to lift weights, you want to build tissue, be muscular, have denser muscles, like carbohydrates are so valuable. And the fact that you titrated your carbohydrates up, that's something that like, one, your weight didn't go up, that's a great sign. It's like, okay, well, carbs don't make me fat. It's all about calories. If I eat some more carbs, then you might not notice like an overnight difference, but like keep pushing carbohydrates as like, if I were coaching you and we were trying to continue to recomp, I might look at your calorie balance and like maybe we go through cycles where we run a maintenance, do a little bit of a deficit and see if, that makes a difference on your fat mass. But every time we were in the maintenance or slightly above maintenance for building, I would get your carbohydrates as high as we possibly could and keep your fats low, because the more carbs that you're going to get, the better your training outcomes are going to be, the better your recovery is going to be, the more muscle you're going to be able to build. And I, unless we got something back, like from a blood test that said like you were insulin resistant or for some other reason, I would not be concerned about pushing a lot of carbohydrates for you. So I think you are, I hate to be like, you're good because kind of what I said to Rich, like, dude, you're awesome. Like, you don't need to change anything. It's like, but I want to change. I just want to like set the clear like expectations of what you should be aiming for. I don't believe you're going to get this down to 15% and feel as balanced as you might feel. If anything, I heard what you laid out for your week, and I'm like, she's doing too much. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm training this hard, and I like to do this little cardio thing a couple days a week. Plus, I like the long session on Saturday, and I'm like, that's just a lot. It's a lot, and it requires a lot of fueling. Probably, I'm not looking at your daily step counts. I'm not looking at your total volume of training, but I just hear that, and I'm like, I don't want this person under eating to try and lose body fat on top of a high output, and because then they're going to crash at some point, and then they're going to be like, why is everything like feeling hard, and why is my body like seem to not be responding? It's like because you've been kind of running on empty for a little while, and now it's pissed.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. Would you say to like scale back on the conditioning during the week and just save it for the Saturdays, or
That
just
might be a good first place. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, make the Saturday thing a social thing. Like if body composition is the number one focus, then reducing the amount of cardio that you are doing and focusing your energy on your resistance training, your diet, just step counts during the week, and then having something fun and social to do on the Saturday, then I think you're going to have a lot more control over your variables, because those conditioning workouts midweek that you're doing, they probably have like varying levels of output depending on what the programming is that day. Like, oh, that was a real ass kicker. Oh, and like that day particularly like makes your appetite kind of feel a little like dysregulated, and you might overeat one day or burn more calories that day than the other day. And it's just a little bit of a moving target. Whereas resistance training, steps, following your macros. We didn't get to talk about like how to approach the nutrition thing without being like too hyper focused and like letting it, you know, create mental stress. But, you know, and I'm not gonna be able to go into it too much, but my one parting thought would be run cycles of it, you know, 3 months on, 3 months off, right? Or like 3 months where I just track my protein, you know, make sure I'm hitting my protein. You probably at this point have a general sense of like, if I do breakfast, lunch, and dinner in this way, I get my protein, I have my whey shake, I'm good to go.
protein? I'm good. Sometimes I think I overeat protein, if anything.
Probably,
like
yeah.
I think I eat too much sometimes. Just curious, like, do you have like I know you don't know everything, but like a carb range that you would guess just based on what you're seeing in my activity level to kind of shoot for?
I wouldn't go anything less than 2 times body weight for you.
Okay.
But then again, I also don't know, like, what's your calorie count right now, roughly?
I'd say anywhere from probably 2,000 to 2,100 is average.
Yeah. I mean, if it was 2,100, I'd put you at a gram per pound for protein. So because of your lean and you're lighter. So that puts us at 500 calories from protein. Excuse me, I'm just doing quick math.
Yeah, no.
So we would do, I'm just going to write it in the chat for you. So we're doing 125 protein, which is 500 calories. We're doing about 47 fat, which is 420 calories. And then the rest would be carbs. Yeah, you could get away with like 290 or 300 carb.
Yeah. I always waver with like the fat for women too, and what's too low for, you know, hormones and just.
Yeah. I mean, as a very bottom, I always say 20% of calories from fat. If you want to wiggle that up to like 55, then that would just meaningfully take this down to like 280, and that would change these numbers. But something like that. Can you see those meeting notes or the chat notes that I just wrote in there? They're down in the, I didn't even hit send yet. Sorry. That was what I just adjusted. So it was that. So those calorie numbers are not correct. It was 47 and 300 grams of fat and carb. That was what I had originally.
Okay.
Anyway,
cool.
But that's kind of just like very quick, you know, off the cuff calculation. But I think 20% of your calories from fat Don't go below that. If you want to play it safe, 25% calories. So again, you said 2,100 calories. Divide that by 4, gets you 25% of calories. Divide that by 9, gets you how many grams of fat you want to have. That's how I would arrive at a number like this. This is just your body weight, and then this is the rest.
Got it.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Well, Katie, Spencer, Rich, Jessica, thank you guys so much for being open to trying this. This was a fun experiment. And I hope you guys got some value from it. And if we have any follow-up questions, we'll hit you up. And likewise, if you guys have follow-up questions, reach out, and have a happy weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You're the
you.
man. Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Marcus. Thanks all.
Bye,
See ya.
guys.
See ya.